We want to move on now to the conversation on the one man, 1 shilling debate. Away from the politics of it, what does it mean for Kenyans? What does it mean for resource allocation? What does it mean when it comes to access to public services and public institutions, for example? Now, let's revisit that report, because that fresh clamor for the adoption of the 1 man, 1 shilling debate by Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has triggered a storm across the country. A section of leaders have accused the DP of fueling ethnic politics, with some saying the implementation will marginalize other parts of the country. Let's take a look at that report. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's call for the implementation of the 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling principle continues to face criticism from different quarters. The chair of the Council of Governors, Anne Waiguru, says governors have already presented their proposals on revenue allocation across the country.
Kugawanywa kwa pesa sio shida ambayo inakaba watu wa Mount Kenya peke yake. Pia kuna eneo zingine tofauti ambazo pia ziko na watu ambao wanagawiwa pesa ya kutosha. Sisi tunataka kuangalia ya kwamba pesa ziongezwe katika county governments, zipate pesa ya kutosha ili waweze kuhudumia wananchi kulingana na constitution ya Kenya.
East African Legislative Assembly member and UDA Vice Chair Hassan Omar has urged the Deputy President to abandon the proposal, citing concerns that it could incite hostility within the country.
1 vote, 1 shilling. Wachana nayo. Hiyo itatuletea uhasama mkubwa sana ndani ya hii Kenya. Leo yule mtu wa Lamu ambaye ametengwa kwa muda yote, leo amepewa zaidi kidogo ili waendeleze jamii yao. Hiko shida gani? Inaitwa social justice.
Rigathi's comments have not sat well with a section of Kenyans who expressed that the formula would segregate parts of the country. The position taken by Gachagua is a U-turn after he opposed the formula that was first proposed by former President Uhuru Kenyatta under the botched Building Bridges initiative, popularly known as BBI.
As at now, is irrelevant. Sababu ilikuwa kwa mswada wa BBI na ikapigwa vita kali sana. We never saw any sense at that time. Right now, wale watu wako in power, they want to save their necks at the disadvantage of the marginalized areas.
Mimi niko sawa vile hao waheshimiwa wamefikiria, ndio wengine wachangamke.
Sio kama bwana Gachagua una support 1 man 1 vote 1 shillings. Pia kumbuka, weka hiyo kando, sema twende kulingana na resources za county.
Rigathi's latest push comes barely a week after President William Ruto fired a warning shot at senior politicians in his UDA party, whom he accused of whipping up ethnic emotions for political survival.
We will go to that discussion where we are saying that this country are the most popular, they should get the most money. You will see members of that community who are living in other areas, they will be chased away. We are actually planting a seed of discord. We are planting a seed of ethnic clashes.
If the 1 man, 1 shilling principle were to be implemented today, 18 counties would be the biggest gainers. These include Nairobi with its 4.4 million people, Kiambu with 2.4 million, Nakuru with 2.2 million people, among others. Of the 18 counties, only 3 are from the Mount Kenya region, adding a twist to the raging scramble for resources in the country.
For example, maeneo kama Karisa, ama Moyale, ama Turukana, watakuwa wamemsaidia vipi? Watakuwa wanaendelea kusambaratisha nchi.
They should first of all explain to the ordinary mwananchi the meaning of 1 shilling, 1 man, 1 vote, to understand it properly.
Constitutional experts say the current dispute on whether to put more weight on population or on geography is misplaced as far as the spirit and the letter of the Constitution is concerned. Michelle Ngele Odhiambo, K24. We'll invite your feedback on that report as well. Now, of course, Vivian, the conversation has been revived, and the implementation of this policy, it has quite a history, all the way from 2016 to the Building Bridges initiative. But what do you make of this debate with regard to how much it would benefit the citizens?
I think there are two sides to the coin. On one hand, it is true that for more populous, regions or counties or constituencies, resources are stretched because they have a bigger population. But then the problem with that is if you were to allocate resources solely based on population, it means you disadvantage the people in less populous constituencies or counties like Lamu, like the counties in the northern part of Kenya, the constituencies. So there needs to be a balance so that you do not disadvantage some Kenyans over others. The way to maybe go about it would be to go through the counties and resource the counties effectively. The problem with that is we see massive corruption issues even in the managing of county resources at the county level. We saw the control of budget reports on Nairobi County alone, millions lost unaccounted for that could go towards basic needs of citizens. So maybe the clamor and the push we should be having is for transparency, for accountability, for better management of resources right from the county level. I saw from the clip Governor Waiguru saying that the counties should be better resourced. It is true they should be better resourced, but the problem we are having is we lose still a lot of money and resources at the county level because of cronyism, nepotism. We have pending bills and issues like that have not been resolved with every government that comes in. So it's like we trickled down corruption from the national government, and now we brought it to the county government. So I think the clamor should be more of, yes, population is important and we should not disregard it, because the more people you have, of course, the more tax they pay. And the more, they need more schools, they need more hospitals and stuff like that. But you cannot use that as the only basis for resource allocation. So we need to strike a balance between the constituencies and counties that have been perennially marginalized and those that have more wealth. And of course, when you have a bigger population, it goes without saying, you most probably collect more revenue than areas where they have less populations. So we can't say that the more populous areas, will get more resources and move on and forget about, the other areas. We are all Kenyans at the end of the day. And remember, you could be from Mombasa but living in Kakamega. You could be from Kakamega but living and working in Wajir. So are we going to say that your resources, because you're from Kakamega, sasa, when you're in Wajir, your resources are channeled to you in,
when you need to go to
because
hospital, you go back to
Wajir. People move around. It's an open country. You can't say that only people born and bred in Kakamega live in Kakamega County or in Busia County. We are Kenyans. You might be born in Busia County, but you end up in Machakos or Makueni. And while you're in Makueni, you need to go to school. You need to access healthcare. You need to do business. So we cannot use that one man, 1 shilling, 1 vote is it's a narrow way of thinking. The conversation should be expanded. I know what they're trying to push for is using that issue of population, but it is not the only basis for resource allocation.
Lena, the conversation has largely been politicized, but when you take a look at the other side of it, and this has happened even within the East African community with the EAC member states, and Kenya comes and says, you know what, we contribute more to this council, so we want to have veto powers, and we want to be sisi ndo kusema at the end of the day. But what does it say to you when we have leaders saying, because we pay more taxes, then we should receive more resource allocation? Is that how the tax system is envisioned to be in a democracy?
I think that's a tunnel vision. They're not looking at the bigger picture, because at the end of the day, a Kenyan in Moyale still pays corporate income tax at 30%, same as a Kenyan in Nairobi. A Kenyan in Nairobi probably has access to better hospital, better education than a Kenyan in the northern part of Kenya. So the way I look at it is, it should not be a politicized kind of conversation, but it should be a conversation of trying as Vivian says, how do we now strike the balance? But also, how do we make it equitable? You know, it's not equal. If you're looking at population, to give it an example, if you have an orange, you split 4 ways if you have 4 children, because that's equal distribution of that orange. But then, an equitable distribution of resources would now look at the bigger picture. What are the needs of the people in the north? How do we now invest in the north to bring them up to speed, to get to the level of Nairobi, to encourage me, a Kenyan who stays in Nairobi, to actually go and live and work in the north? And that would ultimately result in a stronger economy as a country. So I'm looking at it from the perspective of, let's not politicize it, let's try and make it equitable. Let's make it fair, because everyone pays tax at the same rate.
All right. Mheshimiwa Asige, the issue of resource allocation has been, you know, it's a very emotive issue. At the end of the day, it is sharing of the national cake, and there are those who feel because they are more and contribute more, they should get more at the end of the day. But this has contributed to a lot of marginalization in this country, and that marginalization has actually led to ethnic tensions and several other vices. What do you make of this conversation, aside from the politics of it all?
I think that Kenyans are getting what they asked for. For example, it is tunnel vision, absolutely, what the DP has said. It is very simplistic in terms of a solution, but he is the same person who talked about shareholders in this country. That was also a simplistic statement. It was extremely emotive as well. But people are expecting him to all of a sudden be very philosophical and wise and you know, magnanimous in how he's thinking. Why? When he has shown you that that's exactly the kind of logic he expressly sort of communicates to the country, even as a deputy president. And I also feel that the DP perhaps should have been a deputy president in the World Bank, in the IMF, somewhere where it's business oriented, where you know, profit is the bottom line. But in a country, you're supposed to be a statesman. You're supposed to speak like a statesman. You're supposed to act like one. Even if you have a particular bias from wherever you are from, you should not speak in that kind of rhetoric, because it's very dangerous. And I think that already central Kenya is more developed than several parts of the country. So I don't understand why we are even discussing this one man, one shilling conversation, because already they are far ahead of many countries. And also, it's really disappointing to see people in Central thinking or getting behind this rhetoric, because I understand, yes, you know, you're looking out for yourself, for your people, your community. However, I would have hoped that Kenya in 2024 would have reached a place where we are thinking about all 47. We're thinking about leaving nobody behind, because we understand the importance of the economy growing with every single person behind it, not just a particular area of the country continuing to benefit, continuing to be you know, given development monies, etc., etc. And the example that Lena has given about splitting the orange 4 ways because you have 4 children, you would never think as a parent, if you have 4 plates, to give the biggest plate to your 23-year-old and then give the smallest plate to your 2-year-old. You're supposed to give your 2-year-old even more attention, you know, because they're the ones who are still growing. The 23-year-old has already grown, you understand? So that is the kind of thinking that we should be putting in place, not thinking the 23-year-old, because they're bigger, they should get the biggest slice of ugali. Alafu the small ones, wewe ngojea kesho, let's see for you. That's not how you raise a family, and that's not how you should raise a country.
It's an interesting take. Vivian, because you talk about accountability at the end of the day, as we ask for more funds and resources to specific places, earlier this week, EACC released its annual report. And among the things in the report is that the Commission stopped payments amounting to tens of millions in the counties that could have gone to corruption. 80 million shillings, for example, was to be lost in tenders in Siaya County, 61 million shillings in Kisumu, 47 million shillings in Bomet. And, you know, every day we see this, and we see the control of budget, and we see audit reports that talk about this. What do you make of the fact that we keep having these conversations on losses reported and corruption happening, but then we keep complaining that we don't have funds? There seems to be a huge disconnect, you know, in government. And everyone says, let's just have accountability, let's just have accountability, but it doesn't really happen. What do you make of where we are in the fight against corruption as you wind up?
I think accountability starts with me, every individual. Some people are of the idea that nothing is changing because the people are not angry enough. I don't entirely agree. I don't think it's about anger. I think it's about information. I think people are not informed enough. I think a critical mass is not informed enough. When we have a critical mass, which should be about maybe 30% of Kenyans, informed and aware of the implications of what's happening, I think then we will begin to see change. So I mean, it's not enough. It's great, like, to raise these issues on social media and talk about them. It's a great way of sharing knowledge and getting the information out there. But it's not enough to only share the information on Twitter. And that's what I was saying. It's important to understand that government works through organizations and procedures. So the way to get your voice heard is to attend these, you know, public participation forums and have your voice heard. And of course, we know that a lot of people don't actually get to attend because, again, when government is planning for these things, they put them like on weekdays when most informed people are probably working. And your boss is not going to give you half a day off to go and attend a public participation forum. So again, we as the people need to come back and tell government, hey, these things you're discussing are important for my day-to-day. Can you move those public participation meetings and put them like maybe on weekends when we are available, the majority of the people are available, so that it's not within my main productive hours. And then begin to organize ourselves, begin to get information on things that affect us, and begin to push back. And we are going to push that back from MCAs. When they attend a funeral and they want to speak, mnawauliza, there's 1, 2, 3 issues. Tell us about that. Don't tell us about nimetoa 10,000. Great, it's great to give, and we love philanthropic people, but we want to hear your voice on key issues. How are our children going to school? How are doctors being paid? So it begins with each and every Kenyan taking, you know, responsibility. Because you pay taxes, you better stand up to be counted when you want to know how are these taxes being used. So it starts with you, and you come together, maybe even as a family or as an association, a group, and you begin to question and ask. And slowly by slowly, I don't think we will see a one-off change, but we can have step changes, like incremental procedural like changes.
All right, no, it doesn't just stop with casting your vote.
Yes,
it is active public participation.
It is active public participation
in your governance, ladies.
Engagement with your elected leaders and community leaders. You know, sometimes maybe you do not have access to the elected leader, but you have access to your community leader, your pastor, your chief. You know, your women leaders. You can start from there and then build the momentum from there up to where, you know, you can question.
The power of the people.
Yes, where you can question your leader.
We must wind up, ladies. Lena, very briefly, 30 seconds, your closing comments.
I think it's time Kenyans rise up to the occasion. We cannot sit back and wait for other people to speak on your behalf. I mean, clearly for us, you can see even from the comments of the audience or the viewers, they feel that the MPs are not adequately representing them. So for me, this is a time for reflecting as Kenyans, the kind of leaders, one, we are electing, but two, how can we actively participate towards some of these policy formulations as a country?
Asige, very briefly, your closing comments.
I think that we need a revolution. That is my absolute sort of like thought, and I stand by it. And I think that corruption will lead to the fall of democracy. And before that happens, we need to definitely look into how are we going to, as Kenyans, sort of like take back this power. And I wanted just to finish this with a quote, which is Socrates' prediction of the fall of democracy. Democracy must fall because it will try to tailor to everyone. Young people will want to be respected as elderly, and democracy will give it to them. Women will want to be like men, and democracy will give it to them. Foreigners will want the rights of the natives, and democracy will give it to them. Thieves and fraudsters will want important government functions, and democracy will give it to them. And at that time, when thieves and fraudsters finally democratically take authority because criminals and evildoers want power, there will be worse dictatorship than in the time of any monarchy or oligarchy. That was Socrates' prediction of the fall of democracy. And I think we're in that time right now.
All right, and that's a very good point to end it, a challenging quote there, to challenge you as a patriot, as a citizen, as a voter, to take active participation in Kenya's governance and leadership. Ladies, thank you so much for speaking to us. We'll be speaking to Honorable Crystal Asige, who is a nominated senator, Leah Onyango, who is a partner tax and exchange control at CDH Kenya, and Vivian Tao, who is a communications and public affairs expert. Many thanks, ladies, and thank you to you for watching us this morning. My name is Michelle Ngele Obiambo. Good morning.